Yo, what up? Eusebius here, back at it again with another video. And this video is going to be a bit different than the ones I created before, especially in this series. In this video, I'm not using any sort of script. I'm not going off of any notes. I'm just going to be talking simply from my perspective in a very raw, let's just say, emotional background. I've never been the best at asserting myself. It's something that I had to work on while I was in the mental hospital. Throughout my years, I really wondered who I would become. And I don't know if younger me can approve of who I am now. I don't know I don't even know if younger me knew my entire life would be thrown into turmoil in the sea of mental illness. This is The Horror of Mental Illness, which is a series where I talk about pieces of art that I created in response to whatever emotion, symptom, whatever it may be, based in my illness. Personally, I have three main disorders: a psychotic disorder and two anxiety disorders. And so, I've experienced some things that not many people can say they've experienced. And in this series, The Horror of Mental Illness, I take, like I said, I take a symptom or a feeling or whatever, and I transform that into a piece of art based off of horror. So, without further ado, let's get into the art. This is what I like to call terror. I call it terror because it's a very, very strange feeling for me. I grew up hating fear, but I was always afraid. Afraid of what people would think of me, afraid of what people would say to me, and even at times I've had delusions about people on the moon who are going to kidnap me, take me to the moon for this space prison. It was really strange. And I've always looked back in my life and I'd see immense, immense terror. And that is what I wanted to showcase in this drawing. It is a drawing. I took a photo of myself, overlaid it a couple times, moved things around, increased not saturation, increased some brightness, exposure, brilliance, and just anything you can really find in Photoshop, really. And then I added in some black splotches to make sure that I felt like it was like a piece of cheese. That may not make sense, but let me get into that. Cheese is aged. Cheese, as at least in many depictions of cheese, have holes in them. But it's their age. It's the fact that it took time for them to become something good. That's not to say cheese, like milk, isn't good, but it took time. It took aging for that milk to become cheese. And even with other cheeses like mozzarella, I mean, it still took time for it to get where it was. And that's sort of where I got the idea to create all these gaping holes. I honestly, a couple years ago, I didn't even know that my life would be what it is as it is now. I wouldn't I wouldn't have even imagined. I didn't even know what a mental hospital was until I was sent to one. And it was a very strange experience. I grew up being afraid. Afraid of the dark, afraid of opinions, afraid of myself even, afraid of my anger and my inability to control it. And I somehow found my way through life with that fear. So how did I get over it? Well, I got over it by exposing myself to it. A little thing that I learned in my second stay in a mental hospital is if I see visual hallucinations, instead of running away, cowering, instead of doing nothing, I take that energy from my racing heart. I take that energy from my that fight or flight response. I take all of that and I transfer it into something else, whether that be art or weightlifting or anything really. And even sometimes I would run straight through them. That is how I got over it. I exposed myself to it over and over and over. And maybe you can do the same. So anyway, I hope you really enjoyed this episode. I have more pieces of art that I want to show onto people. But yeah, with all my weird aneurysms aside, regardless, I hope you have a good one. If you're in an emergency, I have emergency links down below, And I also have my Instagrams down below. You can DM me if you need someone to talk to. So I guess that's it. I'll see you guys in the next one. O hui ho malama pono.